Awete Diskipuli. Today we are going to talk over Chapter 8, and together to do that we're going to be looking in your books at Chapter 8, which is on page 53. So if you haven't yet, please pause this video and then go grab your book and you'll be right back. Thank you so much. Okay, here we go. So Chapter 8, thankfully there's not too much new here. It's just a little bit of stuff going on. The thing that's going to confuse us just a little bit is the neuter new set of endings, but I'm going to show you right now that they're easier than you think they are. So in your book you have the neuter chart, but I'm also going to write it up here. So we have, for our singulars, donum, doni, dono, donum, dono. And then for our plurals, we have dona, donorum, donis, dona, and donis again. So if I label those, I always tend to write the chart and then label, I'm sorry. So we have nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, and ablative. And I apologize, I'm writing on a downward slant today. Don't know why that's happening, but it's not uncommon for me. All right, and then if we label our columns, we have singular and we have plural. Okay, so if you watch the Chapter 8 vocabulary video like you're supposed to, you've already heard the song that includes something called the Neuter Rule. And it sounds like this. Neuter nominatives and accusatives are the same. Neuter nominatives and accusatives are the same. And when plurals we must say, those two cases end in A. Neuter nominatives and accusatives are the same. So, using that rule, we can actually see what's going on here. We've got a nominative, donum and dona. So donum is singular, dona is plural. Donum for our accusative, and dona for our plural. Do you see how they're exactly the same? The singulars match and the plurals match. And then we also have, and when plurals we must say, those two cases end in A. Well, looky here, neuter, nominative, and accusative, plurals end in an A. All right? So what's nice about this rule is it's always true, which is not very often to happen in languages. Usually languages have a bazillion exceptions. So this rule is always true, even when you get to learning third declension, which you're not going to do until next year at least, or the year after even, or fourth declension. So it doesn't matter what declension we're in, the neuter nouns always follow this rule. So remember, neuter is a gender. We have masculine, feminine, and neuter. But remember also that, yes, it's gender, but it's really just another category of nouns, okay? All right, so neuter nouns, nominative and accusative are the same. Plurals end in A. We've got a song to go with it. The rest of the endings, if you look at them, are going to look really familiar. Because if I sing our masculine second declension ending song, it is declining we will go with us, E-O, O, E, orum, east, os, east. It's second declension, yo. So the only ones that don't match your second declension endings, your second declension masculine endings, are basically just the ones that are affected by the neuter rule. So your nominatives and your accusatives. Everything else is exactly the same. And actually, even our accusative singular is exactly the same. So the only ones we have to watch out for as being different than what we have already learned is both nominatives, singular and plural, and then our accusative plural. Everything else matches your masculine endings that you've already learned. So if you know your masculine endings and you remember the neuter nominatives and accusatives song, you've got this chart. No problem whatsoever. Okay? So that is the neuter rule. So the neuter rule says that for all neuter nouns, nominatives and accusatives are the same, and the plurals end nominative and accusative plurals end in a short A. Okay? Now they say short, because remember, some vowels have a long line over them, and we don't worry about that too much. It's called a macron. So your book specifically says short A because it never has that long line over it, but it also isn't something we need to worry about much at all. Okay? All right, so I'm going to erase this while you turn to page 57. Page 57. And make sure you have a pencil or a pen to be writing this down. So, page 57, we are going to go over this one together because, especially in the translation section, some of the ways that they do the words could trick you. It's not that you can't do them. You could totally do them, but they might trip you up if you're not expecting them to do what they do. So, basically, they're doing endings on stuff, and that might make you think things are different than what they are. So, we're looking at page 57, section A, translation, and we're just going to go through them. Some of them are super easy, and then some of them are a little bit trickier. So, number 1 says neko. This one's pretty easy. Neko, nekare, nekawi, nekatum. I killed, to kill, I killed, killed. So the one that just ends in O is I kill. Number 2, we have kailum. Also very easy because that's the form we memorized it in our vocabulary list. Kailum, kaili, neuter, sky. Number 3, we have pognamos. This one we're going to have to look just a little bit more carefully at. Pognamos. Okay, so it does come from one of our Latin words from this chapter. Pugno, pugnare, pugnavi, pugnatum. I fight, to fight, I fought, fought. But we have a mus. What does mus mean? Well, if you think back to our verbs chart, O means I, S means only you, T means he, she, or it, 3 more, and then we're through. Mus means we, tis means you and you, unt means they, since endings now we're through. So mus means we. So pugna is fight, mus is we, so it becomes we fight. All right, so that's a full sentence right there with one word. All right, number 4 is pueri. We have a different ending here. So we learned in our vocabulary puer, pueri, and we have the pueri ending here. Now, this one, if we think about our masculine ending chart, right? Puer is masculine. We have declining, we will go with us, e, o, o. E, orum, is, os, is. It's second declension, yo, ho. Because you guys were adding that. Yo ho. One of the classes was. Some of you might have no idea what I'm talking about. All right. So we have the letter I showing up in 2 locations. So which one is it? We don't know. So we need to write both because the word by itself doesn't tell us enough to know. If it was in a sentence, we could easily tell which one it is. So this one, if it's in the second row, nominative is the subject, genitive, possessive. So genitive is in the singular column, and then nominative was in our plural column. So nominative plural of boy would just be boys. Or if it was the genitive singular, genitive is possessive. We can say possessive with the preposition of the. So boys or of the, and remember it's singular, so it's not of the boys, it's just of the boy. All right. Number 5, I was looking at 4, so I said it. Auxilii. Auxilii. Sounds like silly. Auxilii. This is another one of our new vocabulary words for this chapter. We learned auxilium, auxilii. means help, but we do need to pay attention to the ending, because the only way we could say it was just help was if it was in the nominative singular, auxilium. But it's not. Now, is this masculine? Can we use the same chart? It is not masculine, it is neuter, but we don't have to erase all of this because it's almost the same. Where is it different? Only where the neuter rule affects it. Neuter nominatives and accusatives are the same. Neuter nominatives and accusatives are the same. So it's going to be the nominatives and accusatives that we have to swap out. And actually, even our accusative singular doesn't change compared to the masculine chart, right? It's just that our nominative changes to match it. So we have and then, and when plurals we must say, those two cases end in A. So there's an A there and an A there. So, do we have two options for the meaning of auxiliary if it ends in I, or do we only have one? We only have one because we erased our other one because it's neuter. So for the neuter, if it ends in I, it is definitely genitive singular. And how do we translate genitive singular? Of the, and the might or might not be there, help. So of help or of the help. All right, let's erase that. We've got 6 more. While I erase, you go ahead and write down the meaning of number 6. Divide et regna. That is a review maxim for you guys, so you should know that one. I'll tell you in a second if you don't, or you can flip back in your book and find it. Divide et regna, divide and rule. And that is written by Machiavelli. Machiavelli is spelled M-A-C-H-I-A-V-E-L-L-I. Machiavelli, if you want to. You don't have to put who it's written by, but it's cool if you know it. All right, so that was number 6. We're on to number 7. Number 7, we have servum. Is that the ending that we learned when we first learned our vocabulary for servu? It is not, because we learned servus, servi. So when it becomes servum, where is it? Now this is the neuter. Is this a masculine or a neuter noun? Hint, the only neuter nouns you know so far are the ones from this chapter. So yes, it is a masculine noun. Masculine nouns, we would go back to us, e, and os. So where is It is our accusative singular. How do we translate accusative singular? The, and then whatever the word is. So the slave. And then I always put, when I have something in the accusative, I add in parentheses, if I'm doing just one word, that it's the direct object so that I don't get confused later on. Because looking at the slave in English, the direct object and the subject can be exactly the same. It could be the slave is doing something or I was watching the slave. Both of those would look exactly the same in English, but in Latin they have different endings. So I just put DO to remind myself that it's the direct object case. All right, number 8, mandant. Another one of our chapter 8 words. Comes from mando, mandare, mandavi, mandatum, I entrust, to entrust, I entrusted, entrusted. So this is related to entrust, which incidentally, if you need a reminder of how to remember that, if you are a Star Wars fan, the Mandalorian was entrusted with Baby Yoda, kind of. So Mandalorian. It's not really a derivative, but it's a really cool memory trick. It's kind of fun that that came out. Okay, so manda has to do with entrusting. What is our NT ending? Unt means they, unt means they. 6 endings now, we're through. So it becomes they entrust. Number 9, dominus. Comes from dominus. They didn't change the endings on us, so dominus just means master. number 10. Exempla. Did they change an ending on us? Yes, they did, because we learned exemplum, exempli. If it was exemplum, exempli, it was a neuter, which means I need to change this back again. So our neuter endings that change are up here to match the accusative, and then a in both the nominative and accusative plural. So where do we find our a for exempla? We find it in the nominative and accusative plural. So how do we translate nominative and accusative plural? Either just examples or the examples. So I'll just put the in parentheses because it could be there, it might not. Examples, because it's plural. All right, last one is number 11, and it is Pognamos. So again, do we have a different ending? We learned apugno, apugnare, apugnavi, apugnatum. This is not the same as any of those, so we do have an ending. We have an S. Apugno, apugnare, apugnavi, apugnatum means I attack to attack, I attacked, attacked. But our S means only you. So one you, so just you. And what are they doing? You attack. All right. So that is the translation section. That is the trickiest part. What I would like you to do right now is pause the video and do section B, the chant. So you're going to fill out that whole chart with all the missing pieces of information, because all you need to do if you don't know the answers is go back to page 53. And it's right there. We've talked before about how the charts on your worksheet are easy to check because it's just right there in your book. Okay, so do that for me and then unpause the video and come back and we'll do the grammar together. All right, welcome back. We are going on to section C, the grammar. So this is just summarizing kind of what we've already talked about. Number 2 we haven't talked about yet, but we're going to. So number 1 says in Latin, number 1 is what we have to talk about, I'm sorry. Number 1 says in Latin, the blank of the noun allows us to need fewer of those little words called blah. So if you remember, donum is gift, doni is of the gift, so we have a little word like of. Dono is to or for the gift. Donum is just the gift. And then dono, the ablative, is by, with, or from the gift. What's the grammar term for these types of little words in English? Prepositions. These guys are all called prepositions, and the rest of you are like, oh, I get it, if you didn't think of it on your own. Okay? Oops, I just wrote on my wall. Oh well. So, prepositions is what these guys are called. So in Latin, we don't have these for those cases, right? We just tack an ending on. So English needs this prepositions to tell us what job a noun is doing in the sentence. Latin doesn't. Latin just uses different cases, puts different endings on. Does that make sense? I'm going to hope that you're nodding your head because I can't actually see you. All right, so English needs prepositions to tell what a noun's job is in the sentence. Latin just uses cases. So if we look at question 1 now, it's going to make a lot more sense. So it says, in Latin, the blank of the noun allows us to need fewer of those little words. So what of the noun allows us to need fewer words? The case of a noun allows us to need fewer of those little words called, we just named them, prepositions. Okay? Now, Latin still has prepositions, because when I memorized prepositions when I was a kid, I had to memorize all the prepositions, and I swear there were 100 of them. I don't know for sure, but there were a lot, way more than 5. We only have 5 cases. That's not enough for all the prepositions. But a lot of the prepositions that we use frequently to show a noun's job in the sentence are controlled by the case in Latin. But there are other prepositions too. All right? So the case of a noun allows us to need fewer prepositions. All right. Question number 2. You should be able to answer this by singing a song. According to the blank rule, words with the blank gender will always have the same endings in the nominative and blank. And the neuter nominative and accusative plural always end in a short A. So, according to the what rule? It's called the Neuter Rule. I don't know if I mentioned that, but it makes sense because we were talking all about these neuter nominatives and accusatives are the same. So, according to the Neuter Rule, words with the, what gender are we talking about? Neuter gender. Will always have the same endings in the nominative and accusative. And the nominative and accusative plural end in an A. Okay, so our song basically takes care of you needing to know that information because it's all right there in the song. Okay, let's just really quickly do section D and then we are done for today. So section D, derivatives. One of these is harder than the other. Number 1 says a person with a blank has been entrusted to do something. So it tells us that the derivative we should be looking for is one that comes from mando. So it should look similar to this word in English spelling and be related to what this means. But it's not going to be just entrust because entrust doesn't look like mando, right? So we're looking for an English word that looks like mando and is related to the meaning of entrust. Most of you have probably never heard this word. Some of you might have. That word is mandate. So a person who has been given a mandate has been entrusted to do something. So we as Christians have been given a mandate to try to live like Christ. So that is one of our mandates that we have been given through God's scripture. All right. Number 2, many people make a blank to their favorite charity at Christmas time. So they tell us in parentheses afterwards that the word we should be looking as a derivative, we should be looking for a derivative of is donum. So we're looking for a derivative of donum. What does donum mean? Gift. Now, we don't write the word gift because that's not a derivative. A derivative has to look like the Latin word. Usually we say it should try to share at least 3 letters. That's not always true, but that's a good guideline. Okay? So a gift, but it starts with some of those similar letters. Can you think of a word? Donation would be the derivative that we're looking for. I don't know why I put a period there, but we'll just leave it. All right, so that is the end of page 57 and our lesson for today. I hope you all have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Laudate!